Welcome back to part two of my documenting of Cobbler and Ansible on Rocky Linux. Last time we went through the basic overview of things, and I was starting to take my extracted configuration from a old 2.8 Cobbler distribution that I've been running on a old CentOS box and move it over to a new Rocky Linux box, Rocky Linux 9.2, and going from the 2.8 version of Cobbler to a 3.3 version. So crossing that uh, whole number boundary, the whole version number from 2 to 3, had created quite a few headaches for me. For example, certain arguments had been renamed and others had been deprecated and removed. And it has made for an interesting week. And I've also had issues with, for example, one argument changed the argument from a full path name to a relative path name into a given directory. And another change was renaming one of the directories from KS mirror to uh, distro mirror. So I had to go through and I had to edit the um, shell script I've been using. And let me pull my window over. Ah, pull my window over and share my screen. And here we go. And we've got the script here. I found a couple of other issues with it, such as a duplicate IP address in a couple of instances where it's being a little bit more picky. Cobbler's being a little bit more picky about the address duplication, which is a good thing. But given that I had a address for my onboard network port for my laptop and the external docking station mapped to the same IP address, same DNS name, I've had to undo that, and I've decided to just go with the docking station. But going through that, I've gotten the script so that now uh, it runs through without giving me a bunch of errors like it did before. And I still get errors, but it's more the overall configuration as opposed to individual issues with the commands themselves. One other issue I had was the type checking of certain arguments. For example, on network count right here, if you can see that light highlighting, network count is supposed to be an integer. Well, the code for Cobbler was seeing that in the opt parse returns as a string, and we would get a error raised on that. And so I had to go through and create a patch for that, which has been submitted for a pull request on the main cobbler tree. And there was another one for restarting where the permissions were being goofed up and the cobbler daemon wouldn't restart after it had been started once. And a patch has been submitted and put up for a pull request for that as well. There are a few other issues that I'm finding. For example, we run cobbler in an SE Linux environment, and we have it targeted so that the cobbler daemon can only access certain files, certain directories, do certain actions on those files and directories, access certain network ports, etc., etc. And that had turned out to have a few issues with it, and I've got some workarounds in place right at the moment. But I've got to track down the source code for the SE Linux policies and make some changes and submit those upline to the repositories that maintain those information. It will probably end up putting it into the cobbler repository, since I've been talking with the main maintainer, and we since I've got experience with that, we may go that route as opposed to just leaving it as a contributed package to be handled by the operating system itself. But we'll go ahead and we'll take this down, and I'll show you how things are going right now. And one thing I'll do to show the debugging information is I will do a tail. Let's do a continuous tail on var log cobbler.log. And we'll give ourselves a little bit of blank space there to know that it's new stuff. And we'll come down here, and my script name, it's a bash file, 2023-06, and let's do file name completion, 16, yep, .shell. So we'll set here and we'll run this. And notice it's adding the items up in the log file up here. And we're adding profiles now. And real quick, like, we'll start setting up the systems, and no errors so far. Now, as we set up systems, this error right here, we'll take a look at it here in a minute, but this will happen on every single system. And it'll actually turn out to be an issue with the DNS server restart, which I will proceed to debug in this next round of debugging. So I've made some progress, and it's still got a little ways to go. I've not even begun to validate the generated DNS config files, the zone files and such, which is probably where the problem lies. I've also not validated the DHCP config file. So the next step is to go through, try to get DNS and DHCP working, and we'll see how things go. But this will take about another minute or so. But in the meantime, I've like I said, I've got some issues with SE Linux. Now, if you don't know what SE Linux is, it's a package that provides additional security. And there's good documentation out there on the web. And like I said, it helps control access and such. And you can have it in permissive mode, where it just logs what would otherwise be blocked or allowed. You got targeted mode, where it's targeted to specific processes. And then there's a third mode, which is very strict, and running the system in a very strict mode. You have to define everything that's allowed. And it's almost never run in that mode. But like I said, I had to patch up a file over an etc. Says etc named.conf and etc secondary.conf. Secondary.conf had to be fixed because it didn't have the proper addresses. Now it's also got 000 mode on it, and that might also be something that I have to fix. But we finished, and if I go down here and I do a cobbler report, actually let's do a cobbler list. I've got my distros, my profiles, my systems here, repos, images, and we can even go up in here and see some of the definitions for them. And many of these I've not updated the declarations and haven't used the particular machine, like for example the Nginx system. I used it a couple years ago and I've just kept it around. So the actually that's a repository. Here we've got an image for booting to memtest 86. So as you can see, we're now processing the shell script to configure the server. So I thought I'd give a brief update and let you see how things were going. So leave a comment down below. Let me know things you'd like to see in more detail or whatever. And keep a watch out for the next video where I'll actually hopefully show the actual installation of a new machine using Cobbler followed by Ansible. Have a great weekend, folks.